Welcome back to the channel. This is 20 Storm and you are watching third part of What If Kid Naruto Became Kage's Hidden Assassin. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Naruto was standing on a big rock on a small hill behind the abandoned village that Aoi and the rest of his troops were said to use as a base. The blonde in a mask let his eyes memorize every building and alley in the small village while he counted the number of bandits and thugs walking around. From what I could tell, they weren't expecting any kind of attack based on how loud they were. Not very well put together, are they? Naruto said something as he watched a couple of bandits fight over a bottle of sake. What are you hoping for? After all, they are thieves. If they follow this missing nin, he must have whipped them into shape or something, but they're still bad guys at heart, Kurama said as he watched the drunks fight through Naruto's eyes. Aren't you going to do the job down there? Not yet. I think it's a bit silly to go down there with swords drawn if you don't know how many troops Aoi has. I'm sure he's somewhere around here, but I'm not a censor, so I can't find him. Based on his rank, he should be the only person in the area with the most chakra. Because he is known to have the rage and no ken, it is possible that he has other missing nins with him. Then being quiet is the answer. Kurama agreed. Why don't you send one of my relatives down to watch the village? Find out how many they are. I know the perfect fox to do it. Oh? I told you when you signed the contract that foxes are known for being sneaky and getting into places they shouldn't. No one else is a fighter except for me. One fox, on the other hand, is a censor and can easily find any chakra or life signature. If you want to call him, you should do the usual hand seals for summoning and then call out the technique, but you have to call out his name to get the right one. What's the name of the fox? Akira. Naruto gave the fox a mental nod before taking a few steps back to hide himself better. The smoke from the summoning would be easy for the guards below to see. He decided he was far enough away, so he blurred through hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground. Kachiyose no Jutsu, Akira. When the smoke went away, a small brown fox about the size of a small puppy was sitting on his haunches and looking at him with excitement. Hello. You must be our new summoner, right? Akira said with enthusiasm. He took a few sniffs of the air and turned his head to one side. Why do you smell like Kurama-sama? Uma Yurohai. You must be Akira. Because Kurama is trapped inside of me, I smell like him. I'm his Jinchuriki. By the way, my name is Naruto. Naruto told the fox, smiling under his mask. I see. What can I do for you, Naruto-sama? The fox asked with an excited wag of his tail. I need you to check out the town below for me. Find out how many people are there and try to figure out how strong their chakra signatures are to see if any of them are shinobi. Try to figure out where the strongest chakra signature is in the area and let me know when you have found it. The fox nodded and shone for a moment before going away. Naruto was surprised by this. What was that in the world? Naruto asked his renter. That was what Akira did best. My clan's version of making yourself invisible, and he is the best at using it. Even if he doesn't want to be found, I have trouble finding him. He is the best fox at sneaking into places, so he is the best choice in this situation. I think you already know that he is a censor, which makes it easy for him to find chakra. I see. Then I guess all we have to do is wait until Akira gets back and gives us a full report, Naruto said as he walked back to the edge of the hill to keep watch over the village. After an hour, Akira came back and told Naruto everything he knew about the village below. The fox said that Aoi had 73 men in total, and 10 of them were missing nin with chakra signatures from low genin to mid chunin. But the most worrying thing was that Aoi's chakra signature was in the middle of junin. Naruto wasn't too worried about it, given who he was and what he could do, but he figured it wouldn't hurt to come up with a plan just in case. Naruto, Kurama, and Akira spent half an hour coming up with a plan. After that, they decided to do a mission that was both an infiltration and an assassination. Akira would be hidden inside Naruto's kimono and tell Naruto where the missing nin were because they had to be found first. The bandits could be dealt with last, since they were more likely to be used as cannon fodder. After putting Akira in his kimono with the fox's head sticking out of his chest, he used Shunpo to get him off the hill and start the plan. It wasn't hard to get rid of the weak missing nins. Sticking to the shadows and saying, "Show, here and there, they're as bright as a light." At this point, Akira told him about another thing the fox could do to help him out. Naruto found out that if he stood still, Akira could use his ability to become invisible on him. It wasn't perfect, but it was good for hiding and not being found. Naruto went to the building where Aoi and some of the stronger missing nins were meeting with Aoi. He made sure that the small fry were out and properly tied down. He got into the room without being seen, and Akira used his technique to make him invisible. So, Aoi-san, when will the Omega-Cure diplomat arrive? One of the other shinobi in the room asked. Aoi looked at the shinobi with a smirk on his face as he twirled the Raijin no Ken in one hand. In an hour or two, he should be here. After all, he was taking us to AIM so we could become shinobi again. I'm sick of working with criminals and hiding from shinobis and bounty hunters. I also heard that AIM is taking in lost ninjas and giving them good jobs so they can make some decent money. Aoi gave them the news. If Hanzo was still in charge, this would not have been possible. I heard that the new leader made up the new rules. I guess they needed more people because so many shinobi died during the battle. Shit. Naruto cursed in his mind. I should bring in Aoi and get the Raijin no Ken before the AIM diplomat arrives if I want to do those things. You ought to. Also, they are easy to take if you want to. He might be an A-rank missing nin, but his skills will never be as good as yours. Kurama made the point. You seem to have forgotten that the rest of the missing nins are still in the room. I could kill them, but I don't think I could do it without them hitting me at least once or twice. However, Naruto stopped talking for a moment, then pointed with his index finger to one of the missing nins in the room. Akira told him that the trick would work if he just stood still. It shouldn't be hard to move a finger. He aimed while he was getting his Riryoku ready for a continuous shot. Show. He spoke softly to break the spell. He hit one of the missing ninjas in the back of the ground on the head with his shot, knocking him out. He wanted to get rid of some of the animals without making a sound, but he made a mistake. Before he could cast another spell, the missing ninja saw their friend on the ground and yelled a warning. Ginjo. They yelled, and then one of them pulled out a kunai. The other people in the group did what he did. Aoi, on the other hand, used the Raijin no Ken to make a blade of pure lightning come out of the handle, which was a bit complicated. Don't be shy. Aoi asked as he searched the room for the person who had broken in. Naruto told Akira in a whisper to stop using the invisibility technique and go back to the summoning world because he had no other choice. Before disappearing in a puff of smoke, the fox gave him a worried look and did as his summoner told him to remove the technique. Naruto took a deep breath and stepped out of the shadows, which made everyone in the room look at him with fear. One of the missing ninjas asked, "Who are you?" Aoi, on the other hand, looked at masked Naruto with curiosity before a smile crept across his face. I would guess that you are a bounty hunter from Konoha because you don't have Hitai 8. Aoi said this with a sneer, but he was scared on the inside because the person was wearing a scary mask and had a powerful posture. Even though he was a member of Konoha before he stole Nidaim's relic, he didn't know the powerful person in front of him, which made him nervous. Naruto thanked Kami for his demon mask, which made his voice sound deeper. You don't need to know who I am, Aoi Rokusho, an A-rank missing nin from Konohagakure no Sato, he said. Is that right? Asked Aoi. Then he pointed the Raijin at the person in the demon mask and yelled for them to attack. Get him. Naruto put his hand on his Sakabatu right away and pulled it out just in time to stop a kunai attack. He didn't want to stay in one place, so he kicked the shinobi to get him to move. Then, he used Shunpo to disappear and reappear behind the attacking group in front of a surprised nin. He cut the man's neck with all his strength and a smooth swing of his sword. The neck broke, killing the man. When he turned to face the other opponents, one of the shinobi had just finished getting ready for a jutsu, which stopped him in his tracks. Great fireball, said Kaiten. A big fireball came out of the ninja's mouth and flew at incredible speed towards Naruto. Since the room was so small, he ran to the only window and jumped out, breaking the glass as he did so. As the attack blew up the room, he didn't bother to turn around. When he landed, what was left of the missing nin immediately surrounded him, making it a 6-on-1 fight. One of the ninjas growled as he flew through a series of hand seals and slammed his hands down on the ground. Mud river flow, Doten. When the ground under him turned into a river of mud, Naruto jumped right away. He flipped and sent a burst of Riryoku to his feet to make a solid platform. he didn't want to waste his move. He launched himself at one of his enemies with a burst of strength while flipping Kenshin to bring the bladed edge to the front. Ryutsusen. The missing nin couldn't avoid the attack because of how fast he was, so he was cut in half from head to groin. The rest of the ninjas saw the attack, but their experience let them ignore it and go on the offensive as a group. Even though he had already gotten rid of one of his enemies, Naruto decided to dodge and block the attacks while he waited for the right moment to strike back. Thanks to his skill with the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, he was able to easily avoid the different attacks while keeping an eye out for a weakness he could use. One of the shinobi went too far with a kunai thrust, which Naruto saw right away. He didn't waste any time and moved Kenshin into an upslash that cut the man's hand off at the elbow. Using the swing's momentum, Naruto did a 360-degree spin and a backward slash that cut the man in half at the waist. The rest of the ninjas shook with fear as they watched another of their friends die a horrible death at the hands of the fighter with the demon's face. His speed was hard to believe, and the way he used his sword was like a dance of death. Naruto decided to put an end to everything, so he used Shunpo to appear and disappear. He then pulled the ninjas' arms off their shoulders, making them useless in a fight. Even if they were shinobi, they couldn't use ninjutsu or taijutsu because they didn't have hands. He kept doing this until there was only Aoi left, and that nin was scared and looking at him. Aoi whispered, "Demon," in fear as he called on Raijin to defend himself. Even though Aoi was an A-rank shinobi, Naruto could tell that the missing nin wasn't very good at kenjutsu by the way he was holding Raijin in a decent defensive stance. Demon? Naruto's voice was so cold that Aoi almost peed his pants. I guess that's what I'll call myself from now on. I can be called Oni. Aoi laughed at him when he finally stood up for himself. Oni, huh? Aoi said bravely, pushing back the fear that was creeping up on him with his mental training. If you are a demon, I have no choice but to kill you. Aoi charged forward at the speed of a Junin and swung down on Raijin, hoping to cut his opponent in half. Thanks to his training with Maida Gai, Naruto was able to see the attack as if it were moving in slow motion. He called Kenshin to stop it. It was a big mistake, though, because the blade he was about to block was made of metal. When the metal of his Sakabatu hit Raijin's lightning-based blade, a strong current of electricity ran through the metal and killed him right away. Naruto gritted his teeth so he wouldn't scream, and he was able to get away by jumping backwards. Even though the electricity stopped flowing when the new Oni lost contact with the famous Raijin, he could still feel some of it under his skin. As you can see, Oni, you have no way to beat me. Aoi said with a sneer, his courage at its highest point because his weapon could hurt the powerful swordsman he was up against. I can't lose if I have the Raijin no Ken. Because Kurama got in the way, Naruto was able to stop the electricity from running through his body. He took a deep breath and stood up straight, Kenshin pointing down next to him. I see. Since my sword is made of metal, it makes sense that it would carry electricity from the Raijin no Ken's lightning blade. I didn't understand how strong it was, and I won't do that again. Naruto said this before putting a burst of Ryoku into Kenshin, which made it glow white. During his training, he used this skill from time to time and found that, unlike chakra, Ryoku on the blade really did protect it from attacks from the elements. During his fight with Kakashi, who had a lightning affinity, he had to use it a few times to block some of the moves the one-eyed Junin threw at him. Naruto jumped at Aoi without using Shunpo and swung his Ryoku-coated blade at the missing nin. Aoi was surprised by the speed, which was faster than his own, and Raijin just barely managed to block the swing. When the two blades hit each other, the missing nin was surprised that his opponent didn't scream in pain. When he looked at the two swords that were locked together, he saw that the electricity wasn't going through his opponent's sword. Naruto saw that his Ryoku had stopped the Nidaim's sword, so he sent some ki to his muscles, pushed the startled missing nin back, and threw another punch that Aoi just barely dodged. They kept going with their sword dance, Sakabatu against Raijin. Even though Aoi didn't have a kenjutsu style, he was still a Junin and could still follow Naruto's swing to block it or move out of the way. Aoi jumped back, did a few one-hand seals, and then called out his technique to give himself some space. Fuden. Air bullet. Aoi screamed, then slammed his free hand into his stomach and blew out a compressed air bullet. Naruto saw the attack coming and used some Ryoku to make the right spell in the palm of his left hand. Seiki, Naruto said in a whisper as he moved his left hand, palm out, towards the attack. When the air bullet hit Naruto's defense, they cancelled each other out. Aoi yelled, "What kind of jutsu is that?" When his attack vanished when it hit the strange ball of energy. "Nothing you should know about, Aoi Rokusho," Naruto said as he grabbed Kenshin with both hands and held him in front of him at a right angle to the ground. He was getting ready to use a technique he hadn't used before, hoping it would be enough to take down his enemy. He used the Sakabatu's blunt edge because he didn't want to kill his opponent. Ha! No matter what you did, it was pointless. Your lousy sword won't help you beat me. As Aoi turned through another set of one-handed seals, he said, "I've got it." Naruto didn't give him enough time to finish the technique, so he went straight into his next attack. Those were the last words Aoi heard before he went dark. Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu, Kuzuryusen. Nine-headed dragon flash, Hidden Mitsurugi Ryu. Naruto dashed forward with Shunpo and used the blunt edge of his Sakabatu to attack all the important spots. This made Aoi scream in pain before the force of the attack threw him away and darkness took him. Since this was the first time Naruto had used the technique, he was out of breath. As Kurama worked to heal him from the inside out, he could already feel the pain in his muscles going away. Damn, that attack is still out of my reach, even though it works. As Naruto tried to catch his breath, he thought to his tenant. He didn't get out of breath because of how fast he was moving because he used Shunpo. It was hard because he had to work hard to speed up his attacks so that he could hit all of the important spots at the same time. What harm has been done, Kurama? Even though you used ki to make your muscles stronger, that attack took a lot out of you and made some of the muscles in your arms so tight that they tore. You could have done it though if you hadn't been lifting weights. Kurama told them what had happened as the Biju looked at the damage and fixed them. In general, you did a great job for your first time. I think you should try the technique out a few times to get used to it. I'll change your muscles so that you can do the technique over and over again without putting too much strain on your arms and hurting them. Instead of relying on Shunpo all the time, I think you should train to get Shinsoku, which means Godspeed. Kurama, thanks for the review. We can probably say that this mission was a success, Naruto said as he put Kenshin back in its sheath and walked over to where Aoi was lying. He saw that the missing nin was still breathing, but he was so far out of it that his eyes were white. It's a good thing I used the blunt edge, or he would already be dead. Naruto picked up the Raijin no Ken and put it inside his kimono before putting the missing nin over his shoulder. He grunted a bit because of the weight, but he was able to handle it once he sent some ki to his muscles. He looked around and decided to leave the rest of the missing ninjas because they weren't part of his mission. After taking one last look around, he jumped and made a Riryoku platform below him. Then, he used Shunpo to go as fast as possible back to Konoha. Naruto got to Konoha quickly because he took the high road while carrying his unconscious passenger. He went around the gate and went straight to the Hokage's office, which he got into through an open window. He could see that the Hokage was still awake even though it was 10 p.m. Hiya, old man. The goal has been reached. The Hokage looked at Naruto with awe and pride as he dropped Aoi on the floor while she was still unconscious. He took Raijin no Ken out of the pocket of his kimono and put it on the table. So there it is. One Raijin no Ken, alright. The Hokage said, "That was fast, Naruto-kun," and then he looked at the Raijin with a sharp eye. He agreed and smiled at the boy. I'd say that this is your first rank mission that went well. I think it's great that you finished it in 24 hours. If I say so myself, it was a big deal. You already told me where he was, so it wasn't hard to find him. Also, a member of Kurama's family helped me easily get into their camp, where I killed the missing ninja before taking care of Aoi. Naruto said this as he was getting ready to tell the Hokage everything that had happened during the mission. I see. Congratulations on your success. I'm happy to tell you that you can keep the position of Kage's hand until you want to give it up. The Hokage told him this before getting a payment voucher from his table and giving it to his surrogate grandson. This is your reward for completing an A-rank mission successfully. You can get your money at any time by showing it to the mission hall on the first floor. You're free until your next mission. Naruto said, yes, and took his mask off. He thought of something. Old man, Aoi gave me a new name while I was fighting him. So, if I wear this mask, you should call me Oni. Not only would it give me a name, but it would also hide who I really am. The blonde told his real grandfather about it. Oni, huh? I think you're right. I'll make sure to update my personal file with your new name. Just so you know, it's possible that you and other shinobi will be given missions together, in which case I will call you Oni in official meetings. Understood? Naruto bowed and gave the old man a cheeky grin before saying, "Understood, Hokage-sama. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going back to my hut to get a good night's sleep. I still have some personal training to do tomorrow because I found out that one of my ultimate techniques makes me very tired." Naruto then vanished in a puff of smoke and leaves behind a laughing Hokage and a sleeping Aoi. Naruto has been Kage's hand for 6 months now. Since then, he has been training and going on missions every day. Even though some of his jobs required him to kill, he was happy with his life. But despite being exposed to the harsh world of shinobis, Naruto was already emotionally prepared and was able to handle certain missions that required him to take a life. He didn't have to like it. He just had to do it. Also, he didn't feel bad about killing because the people he went after were trash, like rapists and killers. Naruto couldn't help but deny the fact that he was fitting into his moniker, Oni, a demon in the world that had no problem shedding blood. He didn't have a cold heart, but he did kill sometimes. Naruto spent most of his time between missions training with hidden Mitsurugi Ryu's more advanced techniques. The blonde couldn't deny the fact that his first attempt at Kuzuryusen, nine-headed dragon flash, was mostly successful due to luck. If not for his improved ki and Kurama's ability to heal, his arms would be useless or it would take months for them to fully heal. Since that was the case, he worked with Kurama in strengthening his muscle and bone density to be able to handle the more taxing techniques of his chosen sword style. After a few weeks, and a lot of modifications to his physiology thanks to Kurama, he could pull off Kuzuryusen without worries. His next goal was to achieve Shinsoku or Godspeed to attain mastery of hidden Mitsurugi Ryu. He could just use Shunpo to make up for his lack of speed, but that technique had a flaw that only Shinsoku could fix. In technical terms, Shunpo was a speed technique that allowed him instantaneous travel from point A to point B. In other words, he would be traveling in a straight line without the ability to turn to a different direction. He could easily fight back with continuous Shunpo, but it would be hard on him and wouldn't give him the mobility he needs to attack and defend. Shinsoku, on the other hand, was just pure speed that was gained through training. Shinsoku, on the other hand, would let Naruto move at the same speed as Shunpo and turn in any direction, thanks to his reflexes and advanced footwork. This was what the blonde wanted to get out of Shinsoku that she couldn't get out of Shunpo. It was slow, but he was making progress thanks to his ongoing fights with Hayate and the physical training plan Maeda Gai gave him. After his mission to get the Raijin no Ken back from Aoi Rokusho, his next missions were more exciting, and some of them let Naruto work with some Konoha Junins and Anbu who knew about his position as Kage's hand thanks to the Hokage. Naruto's position and identity as an Oni in Uzumaki were known to only a few people, like his teachers, Anbu, and the Hokage. The others had no idea he was there. When it came to existence, it seemed like his skill in missions got him a spot in the bingo book. With the way he killed his enemies over the course of 6 months, he became an A-rank bounty. It looked like his secret identity, Oni the Hitokiri Battousai, was on its way to becoming a legend. Only a few people knew about him and that he was a citizen of Konoha, which was lucky because it made a lot of bounty hunters who were after his blood pull out their hair. In fact, the Hokage told him that there was a rumor among shinobi that because he was like a ghost and did such a good job on his missions, he would become an S-rank bounty if he kept going like this. People didn't know he was the Hitokiri Battousai because he didn't show off his skills to the public and he didn't carry his sword around so people could see it. In fact, it was the Hokage who told him not to wear his orange scarf and sakabatu, which were easy ways to recognize an Oni. So, Naruto put these two things in the storage seal in his left hand, in case he needed them right away for a mission. A lot of people in the Elemental Nation wore his blue kimono, white hakama, and Geta sandals, so they stayed. Naruto, who was 10 years old, was working in his vegetable garden when he heard a cry that took him away from his favorite job. He looked up and saw one of the messenger hawks of the Hokage flying around above him. Naruto frowned and stood up. He brushed the loose dirt off of his hakama and then let out a sharp whistle to tell the hawk that was circling to come to him. Instead of raising his hand, the bird landed on his right shoulder and tapped him on the cheek with its head. "Hello there, girl." Naruto said hello to the bird. This particular hawk was his favorite, so the Hokage sent him a message with it. After seeing the bird so many times over the last 6 months, they got to know it and sometimes went to see it even when they didn't have anything to deliver. "What does the old man want to tell me?" The hawk just put out one of its legs, which had a scroll tied to it. He carefully untied the knot to get the scroll and then opened it to read the message from the Hokage. Oni. Come right away to my office. There is a job for which your skills are needed. Your partners will be here for debriefing, so make sure you come in full gear. Sandaime Hokage. Huh? If I have to wear my mask, I guess this is a serious mission. Oh well, might as well get this over and done with. Remarked Naruto with a shrug before tossing the scroll in the air and destroying it with a low-powered Byakurai. Looking at the hawk that was preening its feathers while being perched on his shoulder, he spoke, "You want to come with me to see the old man, girl?" The bird simply nodded before going back to its chore, which made Naruto chuckle. He raised his left hand and unsealed the items to complete his costume. He wrapped the scarf around his neck, put Kenshin on his hip, and put on the demon mask. Without saying a word, Naruto used Shunpo to disappear, taking the bird with him. Naruto appeared in the Hokage office without a sound, startling the various people inside except for the Hokage, who was expecting him. His feathery friend simply flew out the open window upon arrival. "You called for me, Hokage-sama?" Naruto asked in a different way because his demon mask changed his voice. Since there were other people in the room, he had to use a formal name for his surrogate grandfather. "Thanks for coming so quickly, Oni, but we need your help," the Hokage said with a frown. When Naruto saw the old man's face, he knew right away that this was going to be a very important mission. "No problem, Hokage-sama. I am here to serve after all," Naruto said, as he looked around the room at the Junins and Anbu, that some of them were looking at him with surprise because they didn't expect him to be a member of the Konoha shinobi force. "I would assume that these people will be coming with?" The aged leader nodded before addressing everyone in the room. "I have received a request from the leader of Tetsu no Kuni, Iron Country, requesting for assistance concerning a civil war in their territory. Mifune, the leader of Tetsu no Kuni, sent me a message which I received just this morning that he required aid in quelling down an uprising comprised of renegade samurais and some missing nins who were aiming to topple his leadership. He wouldn't have asked Konoha for help because this is an internal matter, but some ninja were missing, so he had to ask for help. Your mission is to get to Tetsu no Kuni right away, meet with Mifune, and do everything he tells you to do to destroy the rebellion." Before going on, Sarutobi took a scroll out of his drawer and gave it to Naruto. "Since Oni is my right-hand man, he will be in charge of this mission. Do what he says to the letter. Any questions?" asked the Hokage, as if he was daring everyone except Naruto to say something. When none came, Sarutobi turned to Naruto. "Oni, you are in charge of this mission. I trust you to do a good job." Naruto made a bow and put the scroll in his kimono pocket. "I'll do what you say, Hokage-sama." He looked at the rest of the people who would be under him and saw that they were both amazed and scared, mostly because of his mask. "In an hour, we'll meet at the North Gate. Get ready for a month-long trip. Full gear includes basic shinobi tools, medical gear, and anything else you want to bring to help you in battle. We will treat this mission as priority S, so expect a tough fight on the way there and when we get there. Any questions? None? Good." Dismissed. After getting a shout of agreement from the shinobi, they all left through the door of Shunshin, leaving the Hokage and Naruto alone in the office. "Hokage-sama, are you sure this is a good idea? Getting the word out that I'm a shinobi from Konoha could have bad consequences in the future." Naruto told the old man about it. "I'm sure, Oni. My spies outside of Konoha have told me that many people have seen you with Konoha ninja, so they are starting to connect you to the village. Some of the shinobi councils and civilian councils are even asking me questions about you. We know there will come a time when your loyalty to the village will be clear. I just didn't think it would happen so quickly." "I see. So, does this mean that I no longer have to worry about hiding my loyalty?" "I would still have to hide my identity, though?" Naruto asked, agreeing with what the Hokage said. Sarutobi nodded, then took something out of his drawer and threw it to his surrogate grandson, who caught it well. Behind his demon mask, Naruto grinned when he saw that it was a Konoha Hitai 8. He didn't wait for anything to tell him to take off his sash and tie on his new accessory. Then he put Kenshin back on his hip. The metal plate was attached to a white piece of cloth, which worked well with his outfit. The Hokage seemed to have figured out where he was going to wear his new accessory, which made him smile. Hokage-sama, well, that's it. I will work on getting ready for the mission. After the Hokage gave him the okay, he used Shunshin to leave the office and go to his hut in the forest to get ready for the battle. Naruto showed up at the North Gate an hour later, wearing his full Oni outfit with the Konoha Hitai 8 as his sash. Some Junins were on the team, and he was glad to recognize a few of them. Naruto saw Akito and Yahiko talking to some of the other Junins. Asuma, who is the Hokage's son, was there with Yuhi Kurenai, who is the girl he likes. He didn't know any of the others. Good to see you all. Before we leave, I want you all to introduce yourselves and tell me what skills you have. This will help me figure out who should do what on the mission if something goes wrong. I'll start by telling you about myself. You can call me Oni, and as you can see, this is my first mission as a Konoha shinobi. My real name will stay a secret though, unless the Hokage tells me to reveal it. I'm an expert in Kenjutsu, Taijutsu, and some jutsus that are only mine. Most of my skills are related to killing and destroying things, but I am also good at being sneaky and sneaking into places. I'm also a good doctor, though I don't have a wide range of skills in that area. I will be your leader on this mission, and unless the Hokage says otherwise, you have to do what I say. Some of the Junins looked at Naruto with respect and awe when he told them who he was. It seemed like his name was known far and wide. He showed the smoking Asuma as the next person to go. This made the Junin look annoyed at Naruto, which made the blonde behind the mask smile. My name is Junin Sarutobi Asuma. I'm good at fighting close up with my trench knives.
I'm an expert in Fudanjutsu, which I also use with my main weapon.
Asuma told the group, which made Naruto nod and point to Kurenai. Yuhi Kurenai, Junin. I use Genjutsu, which is a type of martial art, to fight from a long distance. I just got promoted to Junin, and I'm a skilled support-based shinobi. I can use Kaiden Jutsu, but I don't use them very often because I don't have that much chakra, which is why I focus on illusions. There are no offensive skills other than Taijutsu and a few weapons. The introduction went smoothly, and Naruto couldn't help but smile because he was going on this mission with a diverse group of people. It looked like the Hokage made a good choice to make sure that everyone gets out of this alive. Good. I'm glad that my group has a lot of different types of people. We will go to Tetsu no Kuni in a diamond shape.
The mission scroll says that we should be there in 3 days, so we will be going as fast as we can.
At night, we'll set up camp, and I'll give you each a turn being the lookout. We'll keep doing things this way until we get where we're going. Inuzuka and Hyuga, who are our 2 trackers, will be in charge. Aburame and the doctors and nurses will be in the middle. Asuma and Kurenai, go to the left of them. Take their right, Akito and Yahiko. I will be the only one at the back. I'll take care of any bandits we meet along the way because I don't want any of you to get hurt on this mission and I want you to be able to save your energy. Any questions? Naruto gave him a nod when the Inuzuka Junin raised his hand. Oni-sama, are you really Oni the Hitokiri Battousai? The Inuzuka Junin asked with trembling voice, as if asking such questions would cause him to die in a horrible way. I am that person, yes. Do you have any other questions about this mission? He asked with a bit of irritation in his voice because it sounded like there were some fanboys in this group. He didn't really hate them, but he didn't like them either. Before he asked his question, Asuma put up his hand. Are you sure you can handle the thieves by yourself? I don't mean to doubt your skill, but we can take care of ourselves.
Asuma said this with a smile.
Naruto didn't bother to answer, so he decided to show off a little to solidify his place on the team. He just vanished and then showed up behind the group holding Asuma's cigarette. I hope this is enough to show what I can do. Naruto said something, and everyone turned to see him holding Asuma's cigarette. The person who owned that cigarette just gave him a look. He threw the item to the Junin, who caught it easily. Instead of putting it back in his mouth, though, he let it fall to the ground and stepped on it. This made Naruto laugh, which made everyone pay attention. No more questions were asked, but the looks of fear, awe, and respect got a lot stronger. I can tell from the way you look that you don't have any questions about my order. We'll be on the road for 3 days, so I think we should start now. Naruto told them, which was probably a way of telling them all to move. Before going out, everyone got in place. As the mission scroll said, it took them 3 days to get to Tetsu no Kuni. No bandits slowed them down because the Inuzuka and Hyuga Junins in front of them warned them right on time. This gave Naruto enough time to just vanish from his spot and get rid of the threat without stopping. The rest of the team respected him as the leader because of how fast he moved and how quickly he used his sword. The group stopped for a while so that everyone could put on warmer clothes. Since Tetsu no Kuni is so far to the north, it was colder than usual at that time of year. The other people in the group were looking at their masked leader strangely because he didn't bother to change his rather light clothes. Naruto wasn't bothered by the cold because Kurama was warming him up with some of his powerful chakra. He was too warm for the cold to hurt him. This made him a heater in the shape of a person, so some of the Junins in the group walked up to him to warm up. The blonde was a little annoyed by this, but he didn't say anything. They got to the big iron gate of Tetsu no Kuni, where Mifune was waiting. "Hello, shinobi from Konoha. Thank you for saying yes to what I asked." Mifune greeted the group, but Naruto noticed that the old samurai was looking at him strangely. "Thank you for the greeting, Mifune-sama. I am in charge of this group, and my name is Oni." Naruto told him with a bow, and then the rest of his team joined him. Mifune looked at him for a long time before he got a smile on his face. "A powerful figure for someone quite so young, Oni Dono," remarked Mifune, causing the samurai and shinobis within hearing range to look at the two with surprised looks. For the samurai and shinobi, it looked like the powerful samurai leader was greeting a peer. Naruto immediately took to it since it would be disrespectful to disregard such formality. From the looks of it, Mifune immediately knew of his skill with the blade, or maybe it was due to his status as an A-rank fighter. "I'm not powerful, Mifune Dono, but I'm modest enough to say I'm quite skilled and leave it at that." Naruto said it in a respectful way, though no one could see his grin because of his mask. "Indeed, Oni Dono. But please, welcome to Tetsu no Kuni, and come with me so I can show you how to get to my tower and talk to you about your mission." Mifune said, "Come with me," and then he waved for everyone to follow him. Mifune led them to the village's tallest tower, which was the leader's home. They walked into the building and went to a big meeting room. He told everyone to sit down, and then he did the same when everyone was comfortable. "I'm sorry I didn't give you something to drink after your long journey, but the current rebellion seems to have reached a boiling point, and we need to come up with a plan to stop them or Tetsu no Kuni will be lost." "I see. I assure you that we have not taken offense, Mifune Dono, and understood that things are a bit tense right now. Please, can you tell us more about our enemies so we can come up with a plan to beat them?" Before giving his report, Mifune bowed and said, "Thanks for getting it. 2 days ago, one of my scouts reported a heightened activity in the enemy's camp which signaled that they were preparing for an all-out attack. My spies told me that they were gathering enough weapons to easily attack and take over Tetsu no Kuni. Their numbers are a bit alarming, but nothing that we are worried about with the amount of troops we have in the village. But it seems like the number of missing nins has grown, and that worries me. Do you know how many there are and where they came from before?" Naruto was interested. "We don't know for sure, but my scouts say they have at least 50 missing nins with them. As far as my scout could tell, none of them were from Konoha. Most of the missing nins who were there were from Suna, Kiri, and Iwa." "I see. In order to come up with a workable strategy, we need to determine the exact number of troops the enemy has in their arsenal. So, I'll make sure to find out the exact number. What is going on with the village patrol?" asked Naruto, since most of his strategy lessons with Nara, who was always too lazy to do anything, were about defensive moves to keep people safe. He had learned that lesson so well that it was like second nature to him. Mifune thought about it for a moment, then pulled on a cord. This set off a mechanism that moved a wooden panel, which revealed a map of the village and the countryside around it. "Oni Dono, as you can see, this is a map of Tetsu no Kuni and everything in it. Guards made of samurai walk around the village in shifts that change every 3 hours. During war, this is how things usually work. But this plan's only flaw is that I don't know how to use shinobi tactics." "I see," murmured Naruto as he studied the map, his mind already determining the weakness to the village's defenses, as well as the potential entry point for shinobi spies. "Where is the enemy camp located?" Mifune pointed to a place on the map outside the village but still inside Iron Country and said, "Here. The enemy's camp is deep in a clearing, and the only way to get to it is through a ravine that goes straight to the village."
In fact, it's just one of the new ways to get into Tetsu no Kuni, and only the samurais know about it because they grew up there.
A lot of caves surround the clearing.
The rebels use these caves to house their armies. It is almost impossible to track them since the caves are a maze of passageways that we weren't able to map.
It used to be a mining camp, which is why there are caves there. However, it hasn't been used in 20 years because the metal veins have dried up. Understood, Mifune Dono. Do you give me permission to set up some of my defensive plans to keep the village safe before the battle starts? I wouldn't be surprised if the enemy sent out spies to find out where our military power is going. You can do what you want, Oni Dono, Mifune said with a bow of thanks. Naruto nodded and looked at his team, who were waiting for him to tell them what to do. Naruto thought it was strange that he, a 10-year-old, was in charge of such a skilled group of fighters, even though they didn't need to know that. Because his mask changed his voice and his height, it was impossible to figure out how old he was. From what you heard between Mifune Dono and I, the Konoha team will be checking the village for shinobi spies from the enemies. Aburama, Hyuga, and Kurenai will work together to find out if there are any shinobi in the ranks. Since I know that samurais have chakra signatures as part of their skill set, I want you three to use your skills to find other shinobi in the village who aren't on our team. Asuma, I want you to set up traps with Akito and Yahiko on 3 of the entrances to the village. Make sure that these traps can't be seen and that only shinobis can get caught in them. Since you know how they behave, it would be easy to change your traps to catch them. The team's 3 medics will go to the hospital to help any patients who need help getting better. When your jobs are done, we'll meet here to talk about what happened. Any questions? He put up his hand. What will you be doing, Oni-sama? The Junin asked. I already told Mifune Dono that I would scout the enemy camp to find out how many people are there.
We'd be stupid to fight the enemy if we didn't know what we were up against.
Give me 3 hours to find this information, and during that time we will have a war meeting. Are you sure, Oni, that you don't need help? Asked Asuma with a worried look on his face. I'm sure. It is best if I do this alone since they wouldn't be able to detect my presence thanks to my techniques. Any questions? None? Good. Dismissed. He looked at Mifune. I will take my leave and meet with you later when my task is done. With that said, Naruto disappeared without a sound, causing everyone in the room to stare at the spot he was standing with dumbfounded looks on their faces, except for Mifune who was grinning like a loon. The people from Konoha were in the conference room with a calm Mifune at the moment. They were worried that their leader hadn't shown up yet, even though they were supposed to meet up half an hour ago for a debriefing. Asuma was upset, and he puffed on his cigarette like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Where is he in the world? He's 30 minutes late, Asuma grumbled after blowing out a thick cloud of smoke that hit Kurenai in the face. That woman looked annoyed at his partner. Could you blow that thing out somewhere that people won't worry about getting cancer from secondhand smoke? Besides, if he is really as good as you say he is, then we shouldn't worry about him. She said before scooting away from Asuma since the man was taking another deep pull from his cigarette. About Oni, what do you guys know? I mean, I know he's a strong shinobi because I've heard that, but this is the first time I've heard of him outside of the bingo book. Said the Hyuga Junin who was sipping his tea. No matter how worried they were, he was still a Hyuga, and a Hyuga is always calm, on the outside. If you really want to know about it, then you might want to ask Akito and Yahiko. It's clear that those two treat him as if he were Kami brought to life. Said Aburame who was checking on the bugs in his hands. Kurenai turned to the Akito, who was drawing pictures in his head on the table. Can you tell us something about Oni, Akito? She asked the bored shinobi.
Akito perked up when he heard that someone was suddenly interested in his idol.
He reached into the pouch on his back and pulled out a notebook with the name, Oni, and a picture of the famous demon mask on the cover. Some of the Junins began to sweat because of this. It was okay to look up to someone, but why write a book about them? This is the best. Let me see. No one knows who Oni-sama really is. Akito started to read his book, which was full of information about his idol, Oni. He knew exactly who Oni was, but he would never tell anyone. He showed up out of the blue about 6 months ago. He is currently in a rank shinobi because he has done well on missions and is good at kenjutsu. Because of two things, he was called the Hitokiri Battousai. 1. People who saw his Dance of Death could only say that he has legendary sword skills. 2. He is a bloodthirsty killer of people he thinks are lowlifes. This includes murderers, people who raped women, terrorists, and people who hurt other people. No known skill in ninjutsu, genjutsu, or taijutsu since he mostly relies on his sword according to eyewitness reports. Yahiko took out a book that was similar and picked up where Akito had left off. Oni-sama is known for moving at the speed of gods. He would show up and disappear like a ghost, and he could go anywhere in a blink. People who have gone on missions with him say he is a great strategist and very friendly with the people he works with. So far, he has shown 3 different jutsus that don't need hand seals. One is Sho, which acts like a bullet and pushes or knocks out a target. Byakurai's power is like a strong lightning jutsu that can cut through his target. And finally, Seiki, a ball of energy that can stop any attack, whether it's physical or chakra-based. I'm not sure if it's chakra or not. He has done 4 C rank missions, 18 B rank missions, 5 A rank missions, and 2 S rank missions, and his orders come straight from the Hokage. No one has seen him in the mission hall, not even a hide or a hair. It was said that he could finish a mission that should take 5 days in just 1 day without getting in trouble. Also, I think I'll write in my notes that he is a shinobi from Konoha, but I don't know what rank he is. But since the Hokage trusts him, we can say that he is higher than a Junin. Yahiko, before he closed his book. He looked around and saw that everyone, except Akito and Mifune, was staring at him like he was crazy. This made the man feel a little bit angry. What? Asuma smiled at the man before adding his own opinion. You might want to write this down, boys. If his mission success is any indication, there is talk among shinobi that he will soon be promoted to S rank. If this one goes well, he will have done 3 S rank missions. When they heard the news, Akito and Yahiko's eyes got very big. Both of them pulled out their own books and started writing in the new information. Mifune let out a big laugh when he heard this. If what you know about Oni Dono is any indication, he is a very strong warrior. Mifune said this with a rare smile on his face, but his features gave a hint that he knew something they didn't. That reminds me, Mifune-sama. Why do you call Oni Dono, anyway? Asked Kurenai. The question got everyone's attention, and they all leaned forward to hear the answer. Even though you might not believe it, we samurai have our own large spy network all over the elemental nation, just like you shinobi do, so we can know what's going on in the world. Some experienced samurais who have seen him in action said that his sword skills didn't match any style, and we know every style there is because most of them came from our collection or a variation of it. From what they told me, Oni Dono is a very skilled swordsman who beats his opponents with godlike speed. His sword strikes are precise, and he didn't waste any motion when he did them. One of my spies, who is only second to me in sword skills, said that he would be as good as me or better based on how fast he was. So, I talk about him in a way that shows the respect his skill deserves, the old leader of the samurai told them with a smile. Everyone looked at him in awe after he told them this. Everyone knew that Mifune was a strong and skilled swordsman. Who knows what this man could have really done if he thought Oni was a good swordsman. Akito and Yahiko were busy writing in their books, and learning everything they could about their idol. But they weren't ready for the familiar voice that rang through the room and made them stop in their seats. Naruto came out of the shadow he was hiding in and said, "It's nice to know that the world is aware of my existence." In fact, Akira was hiding in his kimono and turned off the technique that made him invisible. He showed up right at the agreed upon time, but he pretended to be late so he could hear what was being said. When he heard what his subordinates said, he wasn't upset. "Sorry, Mifune Dono, I'm late." "Ho ho. Oni Dono, I don't think you've ever been late. You got here just in time, after all. I just didn't understand why you were hiding, even though I could see what you were trying to do." Mifune said this with a laugh and a sly look at the stunned people in the room. When everyone heard this, they all looked at Oni in a suspicious way. The man just laughed and sat down next to the leader of the samurai. He is correct. I got here at the same time as you guys, but I decided to at least listen to the rumors. Naruto said this in a funny tone, making the Konoha people groan in embarrassment. "So, what do you know, Oni Dono?" Mifune asked. "Your information about the samurai rebellion is correct, but I decided to get a better idea of how many of them there were and how strong they were. There are 120 samurais in their ranks. There are 45 missing nin from Iwa, Suna, and Kiri here. Their chakra signatures range from high genin to low junin levels. They are currently being supplied weapons by a man named Sakari Kinto. Sakari Kinto? Mifune said immediately with a frown on his face. Are you sure? Naruto took a scroll out of his kimono and gave it to the old samurai. The old man took the scroll. When Mifune saw what was written on the scroll, he turned pale. When I was looking around their camp, I got this shipping list from one of their meeting rooms. Hope it didn't bother you that I read it before you did. So far as I can tell, Sakari Kinto is a very important person in your court, right? Naruto pushed the old leader to get him to tell him something. You're correct, Oni Dono. Sakari is a member of the Samurai Council and is one of the most successful merchants in Tetsu no Kuni. He is a businessman, not a soldier. From what I can tell from this document, Kinto has been giving them weapons and some money to help bring down the current government since the start of the rebellion. We want to know why he would go to such trouble. Mifune said this with a mad look on his face. He is currently out of the village on a business meeting, but I think he made sure to stay away from the battle to save his own skin. When it came to battles, the leaders of the rebellion decided that they would attack tomorrow at dawn. We don't have enough time to come up with a good plan, but since we're not ready, it would be smart to play defense. Have you trained your samurais to fight? The old warrior was asked by Naruto. Oni Dono, be ready and wait. I agree with you that we would be, so to speak, on the defensive. But based on the way you talk, I think you have a plan.
Indeed.
From what I could tell while they were in a war meeting, they will attack tomorrow at dawn with everything they have. All of their troops will come to this village to bring down Tetsu no Kuni and take over the country, starting here. I suggest a two-pronged attack. My group will leave early tomorrow morning and set up camp a few miles from the rebel camp. Once they leave, my team will use their explosive notes to blow up the cave system so that they don't have a place to go back to. Once they are done, they will come from behind the attacking force and hit them using a hit-and-run tactic. Once they've gotten rid of some of the enemy's forces, though, they'll work together to find and kill the missing nins in their ranks. I'll help you protect Tetsu no Kuni while my team destroys the enemy camp. When my team is done with that mission, I'll join them when they go after the back. Does that make sense to you? Yes, that's a good plan, but I think they should bring a team of my own samurai with them on this mission, since I doubt the missing ninjas would just ignore them. If they find out that your team is supporting their army, you can be sure that they will try to take them down. No matter how good your team is, I don't think they could handle 45 missing nins. Mifune said this as he messed with his beard. Thank you, Mifune Dono. You just saved me from having to bother you about this. Naruto said, thank you, which the old samurai replied to with a bow of thanks. Do you know where they will attack, though? Mifune asked, his mind already processing the information and doing a headcount of his current troops minus the ones he would send with the shinobi team. Naruto nodded and stood up from his chair and walked towards the map. He pointed to the enemy camp and moved his hand down towards the western gate of Tetsu no Kuni, where the ravine was. This will be their attack route considering that the western gate is the weakest out of all the other gates of the village since it only leads to the cave system you mentioned earlier. But if we knew how to place your troops, we could cut down on their numbers for a stronger response. The question is whether you want to attack them outside, where there is more room, or whether you want to let them into the village and then ambush them there. Mifune gave that question some thought before he answered. Oni Dono, I think we should attack them outside of the village. Since they have samurais with them, it is possible that they know where the civilians will be hiding during the battle, in an underground bunker under the mountains. If he puts them in a quarantine outside the village, the people there will be safe. Even though it wouldn't stop them from moving, we have to give up something to make sure that civilian is safe. I see. I understand where you're going. If that's the case, your troops will need to thin out the herd before fighting them. Naruto said with an evil chuckle escaping his lips. He made a spell that works on many people at once, but he hasn't had time to try it out yet. A few months ago, he made this with Kurama to make up for the fact that he didn't have any jutsus that did area damage. To finish up the details, he would have to talk to Kurama later. What do you mean, thin out the herd? Asked Akito. Let's just say that the techniques you mentioned earlier were some of the weaker ones in my arsenal. I've been working on a jutsu that does a lot of damage, and this is a great chance to try it out. Naruto explained to the Junin. One of the medic nins in the group asked, and what would this technique involve, Oni-sama? Let's just say that it's going to be a shocking experience. Oni said something in a mysterious way and topped it off with a scary laugh. Naruto was standing on top of the heavily fortified wall on the western section of Tetsu no Kuni, looking at the battleground with his enhanced eyesight and mapping it out for the battle ahead. His eyes were one of the parts of his body that Kurama changed. His eyes were more like those of a fox than those of Dujudas's. He could see everything, even in the dark, as clearly as if it were daytime. Not only that, but it was improved, so that people wouldn't get tunnel vision like they do when Shunpo or Shinsoku is used. He was an even better master of the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu because of this. Sure, it was cheating, but the shinobi world was a merciless reality and only the strong survives. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts when he sensed a presence behind him. Hello, Uzumaki. What are you doing out this late at night? Shouldn't you be getting some rest before your mission? Naruto said without turning around to greet his guest. Asuma said, hello, Naruto, and then walked up to the swordsman and stood next to him. Otato, I should ask you the same thing. Naruto replied, I can't sleep, then took off his mask since they were alone. Also, I have to stay up late to talk to Kurama and finish the spell I'll use against the samurai armies in the morning. Asuma wasn't surprised by the revelation. Considering who his father was, he knew Naruto's secret about how he trains and who lives in his house. In fact, he treated the boy like a younger brother and was very proud of him. How much damage could this spell you're talking about do? Asuma asked with interest, then lit a cigarette and took a light drag. You already know that most of my spells only work on one person at a time. I've been working with Kurama on this for a while to hit multiple targets at once. I tried this out before in Training Ground 44, and the results look good. But this is the first time I'll be using more power than the spell needs to do the damage I want. Naruto explained as his mind worked around the schematics of the spell and what it would do when overpowered. So this spell would effectively kill multiple enemies at the same time. Are you sure you want to do that much damage? Asuma asked his younger brother this question because he and his father didn't want him to turn into a mindless killing machine. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes. Asuma-ni, I'll be honest with you. I don't really like killing, despite what you may have heard from other Junins I've worked with on missions. I still have bad dreams because of it sometimes. However, I promised myself that I would do so to protect the innocent. These samurai are just as bad. They want to get rid of the rightful government without caring about people getting hurt. There are good people living in this village, and I will do everything I can to keep them safe. Naruto said this with a strong tone in his voice. Well said. A voice behind the two responded. When Naruto and Asuma turned around, Mifune was smoking a pipe and looking at them with a smile. Mifune dono. Naruto said with a cold tone as he moved to put his mask on. The old samurai, though, stopped him. You don't have to worry about your identity, Uzumaki dono. I've known you since you were a baby. After all, Mifune laughed and pushed himself away from the wall. He then walked towards the two people who were looking at him suspiciously. In reality, he only knew who he was after hearing Naruto's answer. Since this was his favorite place to hang out, the fact that he was there to hear the conversation was just a happy accident. How? Asked Asuma. I've known Sarutobi for a very long time, and I've been to Konoha a few times to talk to him and talk about the good old days. This is the main reason why I specifically asked for Konoha's help instead of the other shinobi villages my nation is allied with. Since Uzumaki Dono was a baby, the old monkey has been in charge of him. When the old coot was busy with his paperwork, I even changed some of his diapers. You should know Uzumaki Dono, you were a very messy child. Mifune said with a chuckle before turning to the young swordsman and gave him a serious look. Don't worry, child. I'll keep your secret safe. How did you know how I was? Asked Naruto curiously after relaxing his stance. He didn't like that someone knew who he was, so he decided to give the samurai the benefit of the doubt. Simple, your hair and your voice. This made Naruto look at him with a surprised expression. Your hair has always been this messy, even when you were a child, and not many people in Konoha have hair like that. Even the Yamanaka clan has darker skin than you do, so I knew right away that I didn't know who you were. But because of your mask, it took a while to figure out what your voice was like. Then he gave Naruto a proud look. You've grown up a lot, Naruto-kun. Dono always spoke of you in pride even when you were still a baby, and I couldn't help but agree. Even when you were young, there was something about you that made people think you were great. I just didn't expect you to wield a sword and become a master of it. I think you should do something about your hair though, because it makes your other persona less effective on the battlefield. After all, not very many shinobi in Konoha have blonde hair. Naruto laughed and changed some things about his scarf. Before putting the mask back on, he took it off a little and covered his hair. This did a good job of hiding his hair and made his mask the only thing that stood out from his head. It made for a very intimidating sight. Perfect. Mifune nodded and then joined the other two. I think you should do that going forward to protect your identity. I know it is too late since your description have been spread throughout the elemental nations, but it is better to do it now than never. Thank you, Mifune Dono, for the advice. Naruto said with a bow. What are you doing out so late? Oni Dono, you might not know this, but this was my favorite place to hang out even before I was in charge of this village. The view of the wide open space and the hills around it is very comforting. I see. I'm sorry to get in the way of your time to relax. Naruto apologized. Mifune did nothing but wave his hand. No need to apologize. I also know that you were just using this place to remember where the battle took place, right? Mifune asked with a sneaky grin on his face. Correct. Going into a battle without knowing the terrain is not a good idea. Standard tactics are hard to carry out because of this. If I didn't know better, I'd say that Inara is teaching you. Right now, you sound just like one. Mifune said with a laugh, but then his face changed.
Is tomorrow ready for you?
Naruto turned to his surrogate brother and said, yes, I'm ready for the battle. In 3 hours, I'll give a briefing to the team to make sure everyone knows what to do. Asuma ni, what about you? Have you discussed Kurenai's part of the mission with her? Asuma nodded, took another drag on his cigarette, and then blew it out into the wind. Yes, she is already getting ready for the mass illusion she will use to hide the team and the samurais who will be coming with us. But I want to change the plan and bring along one medic nin who can give Kurenai chakra if she needs it. I could do it, but I don't have the chakra control that a medic nin needs to do this. Agreed. Naruto nodded, then reached into his pocket and took out a ring. He gave it to Asuma, who looked at it with a confused face. Take that with you on the mission tomorrow, I said. Asuma looked at the ring in his hand and asked, what is this? That is like a signal that I can pick up on if you put some chakra into it. It will send out a wave of Ryoryoku that is easy for me to feel. If you ever get stuck on your mission and need help, just put your chakra into it, and I'll come save you. I see. Thank you, Otato. Asuma smiled at him and put the ring on his finger. You know, despite what people say about you, you're still a softie. Naruto growled, and he was glad he was wearing a mask because it covered the redness on his face. Shut up, Asuma ni. All I want to do is make sure you are safe. After all, you're one of the most important people to me. I just want to make sure you're alright. Also, Oji-san would kill me if something bad happened to you. You're right. Even though I can take care of myself, my dad still worries a lot, Asuma said this while pulling a face. Sarutobi has always cared about his family. Mifune gave his opinion. I bet that even if you were old and gray, well, he is already old and gray, but you know what I mean, he would still take care of you like you were still in diapers. Both Naruto and Asuma groaned at this comment, which made the old samurai laugh out loud. As the sun came up over the horizon, Naruto and Mifune were standing on top of a huge wall on the western edge of Tetsu no Kuni. When they saw the rebel army in front of them, they both had grim looks on their faces, though Naruto's was hidden by their mask. Mifune was scared and said, I hope you know what you're doing, Oni Dono. He wasn't scared of the battle. On the contrary, he was excited because it had been so long since he'd been in a big fight. But he was worried about what the young swordsman was going to do. If what the boy said was true, the destruction would be too much for his old heart to handle. Naruto said, trust me, Mifune Dono, which made the old samurai feel better. He saw the army gathering down below and decided it was time. Time has come. Naruto put both of his hands in front of him, palms facing forward, and pointed at his target, which was the center of the invading army. He started putting Riryoku and Ki into his hands and using all the control he had in his body to focus it into a ball. The more he tried to make it grow, the bigger it got. He kept putting the same amount of both energies into the ball until it was as big as his body. The energy it gave off made both his hair and the hair of the old samurai stand on end. When the two energies became too much for him to handle, he decided to let go or else it would explode and take him with it. Here we go. Anipo. Spirit Cannon. Seishin Taihao. Demon Arts. Naruto yelled as he let go of his first spell that broke things. He wasn't ready, though, for what it could really do. When Naruto and Kurama made the spell, Seishin Taihao was just a bigger version of Sho, a technique based on impact that could easily hit a large group of enemies and knock them out with a powerful blast of Ki and Riryoku. But because he was too strong for the technique, Naruto wasn't ready when a powerful explosion shook the countryside. The shockwave that followed almost knocked them off their feet, which showed how strong it was since the blonde was far from the point of impact. Everyone stopped what they were doing, both the rebel army and the samurai defenders. Both groups were shocked by how much damage such a technique could do. All of it started with one man. There, in the middle of what used to be a big army, was a huge crater that was probably 50 meters across and 10 meters deep. The samurais who were hit looked like the power of the spell turned them to dust, which is exactly what happened. Naruto looked at the damage in front of him and coughed a few times to get over his shock. Naruto said in a voice that was too calm, I guess it worked after all. This made Mifune look at him with shock on his face. Are you telling me this is the first time you've used it? Mifune asked in disbelief. In shame, Naruto scratched the back of his hooded head. Well, I've used the spell before, but this is the first time I've, I guess you could say, beaten it. I thought it would blow up in my face, but I guess I didn't need to worry. Hehehe, Naruto said in a sheepish tone as he looked at the large hole in the middle of the rebel army. Old man, I think you should tell your samurais to start the attack now. Mifune gave the masked boy a look that said a lot. Then, he took a horn from his hip and blew it for a long time, breaking the silence with a haunting sound that made the defenders shout as they ran out of the village gates to stop the attacking army. Mifune put the horn on the floor and adjusted the katana sheath on his hip. Then he looked at Naruto in a way that said a lot. When all of this is over, you and I are going to have a long conversation, young man. Was all he said before he jumped off the ledge and joined his soldiers down below. Naruto groaned. He knew he was in trouble. I think I deserved that, didn't I? He asked no one, not expecting an answer. Of course, he didn't want to miss out on the chance. You do, and after that old man gives you one of the possible accidents that can happen because of powerful spells, you and I are going to have a long talk. Kurama barked in a way that said a lot. Fine. Naruto huffed and climbed down the wall to join the other old samurai.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.